I'm going to take about 3 minutes here and just explain this passage of Scripture, Matthew chapter 22, from verse 15 down to the end of the chapter, in hopes that it's just a leg up into your own reading this week, or maybe you're reading together as a life group, or you as your family gathered around the dinner table, perhaps together. There are 4 questions that are being posed by this text that Matthew has gathered in his gospel. 3 of the questions come from religious leaders, and they're trying to trap Jesus in order that they would shame him publicly as he's been gathering huge crowds in the temple on his final week, the week of his passion, in anticipation of his execution. It's going to come in about 4 days. The first question comes around this idea of paying tax. The denarius was the coin that was used. And you could say, look, this is a corrupt government. This is a government that's trampled on human rights. How could they pay tax to such an entity? That's not really the question that's going on here. The real question for them, the more important question for them, was the fact that the coin that was to be used had the imprint of Caesar's face on it. And around the outside it says Tiberius Caesar, son of the god Augustus. His father is a god. He's a god. It's a claim to divinity. It's blasphemous. On the flip side, the tails side of the coin is a picture of the goddess Pax and the statement high priest. And so this is a blasphemous coin that's been minted. How can a God-fearing Jew even participate in such a system? And Jesus walks us through that. We're going to talk about it on Sunday, but if you're reading the scripture, note that though Caesar's image is printed on the coin, he is made in the image of God, and Jesus is going to submit himself to the Roman government in order to redeem us. He's going to lay his life down. There's a whole, maybe draw that as a circle. The second question comes around the idea of the resurrection. The Sadducees don't believe it's a thing, but there's a bunch of error here. They don't understand Scripture, he says. They don't know the power of God, and they don't understand the afterlife and how that's going to work. The third question comes by the Sadducees, after the Sadducees, by the Pharisees. What is the greatest commandment? And Jesus responds, and we've heard this language from him before. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. That's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, the Shema, a summary of the Old Testament law. He says the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus, of course, is the answer to that. He's the only one who's perfectly fulfilled the law. He's the only one who can say he's perfectly loved everyone. And then we come and Jesus turns the tables and he asks the question, who do you think who do you think the Messiah is? Well, he's a son of David, but there's divine language here in Psalm 110 that's being used. How can that be? And Jesus is pointing to himself as the fulfillment of all of these questions and this supreme question. And we're back at a place where it's like, maybe it's better if I just be silent and listen to Jesus and allow him to speak. I hope you have fun opening up this passage of Scripture. I pray that God meets you. And if you're studying, reading with others, that it's just a delightful, illuminating conversation. Thanks for your time. Bless you, and bye for now.